Hey girlies, I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Peyton.
and today we are going through Goodreads top fantasy books from 2023.
Yes. So, George with a cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets.
All right. Let's do this.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this podcast. We've been doing a lot of reacting to things, and we've been having so much fun doing it. I like kind of mixing in these different types of episodes within the book reviews so it doesn't feel too literary criticism-y, because listen, we are relaxed people here. We just like to gossip and have a really good time. So what we're doing today, and something that's different from last year's video, because we did this for 2022, is
Yes, it was our baby video. We were so
Yes.
new on the pod.
yeah, so we're back doing it again because we had fun, but Goodreads has some new genre selections. So this year we are going to be reacting to the 2023 best fantasy books, but
Yes.
romantasy is new and it's actually defined as like a genre now, which is so exciting.
Yes.
So we decided, instead of doing top 10 from just fantasy, we're going to do top 5 from YA fantasy, regular fantasy, and of course finishing off with the famous romantasy. So
Which is so good that they did that, because
Yes.
last year, Sarah J. Maas overtook all of the, romantasy books were outweighing all the fantasy books, but they weren't trying to do the same thing.
No, it's just different. Like the world
Yeah.
building's a little bit different. When
Brandon Sanderson is not writing the same way that Sarah J. Maas is.
Yes, and I agree with that. I just feel you see that in like the science fiction space too. It's like,
Yeah.
Why would you put Brandon Sanderson next to Sarah J. Maas? Like, it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit. It didn't feel right. So I'm so happy that we are evolving as a reader species. And so, yes, let's get into this. Just to be clear, we have read some of these books, but we are going to give no spoilers. If anything, we're just going to go over what the blurb is for the books, but we are not going to dive in. We'll give maybe if we rated it, we'll just say, oh, I rated this book 1 star, like whatever. I don't know if I ever rated a book 1 star, but if I did, I'll let you know. And if we read it, so we can kind of react to see is this the best book or not from our perspective. However you feel is how you feel. So we're gonna start on the Goodreads 2023 best of YA fantasy. Yes. And so I'm gonna get us started. Our first one, which comes in at number 5, is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Now, this book took Book Talk by storm. By flipping storm at the end of last year. Lauren Roberts, I mean, you've seen her on TikTok. She's a young new author who just totally has been thrown into the world of fantasy. There is some controversy with this book in the community. If you are a Victoria Aveyard fan and or have read Hunger Games or seen the movie, sometimes this feels a little familiar. But the long and short of it is that, of course, the main character is this poor orphan girl who doesn't have anything extraordinary about her. She lives in this world of magic, and people who don't have magic are basically hunted and killed or seen as less than. And so she has to pretend to have magic. And so, of course, she gets thrown into this society where she has to pretend, and she's put through these trials, and there's the princes, and there's a love triangle, and oh my gosh, there's a lot of high stakes moments. But I did read this book and I rated it 4 stars. Let's give it 3.5. I don't even need to go into the plot line because it's just Red Queen and Hunger Games. Yeah. So think that sort of mentality. But with that being said, Hunger Games, I felt like the plot line was very much centered around the Hunger Games. And this book's not. It's centered around romance with some plot.
Yes. Yeah. I think if it wasn't young adult, it would. I didn't know it was young adult. I thought it was a straight up romantasy.
Okay, so I have this issue too, because some of these books on here that I saw have explicit sex scenes in them, and I don't know. I'm having trouble disconnecting YA and just romantasy at this point, because if I had a teenager and it said YA, I'd feel very okay with them reading these books. But then sometimes I see these books and I'm like, I don't know if I want my kid reading that. So maybe my kid's just going to read Divergent.
I do think that there's levels to YA. I mean, if it's encompassing everyone from 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds, like they're going to have different reading levels. I mean, Powerless does not have any smut in it. I would say for me, this book, I gave it a 3 stars. I feel like I could have given it a 2.5. It deserves its spot as number 5, I think, because it did take everything by storm. People love it. I did not think it was original. I really struggled. Not that I don't mind when books have similar plots. I mean, obviously we have tropes that we know and love, but so many things felt carbon copies. And then what really got me is that I felt like there were scenes and events that took place in this book that didn't make sense for them occurring in world. And in the plot, it didn't make sense, but I knew it was happening because it happened in these other books. Like, I felt like there was some missing depth to this book.
When you know how the plot is going to work out, and you know what I mean? Like, yes, there's tropes in books, and, there's things that people eat up, and, like, of course, include those in your books. But when you know how the book is going to end before it even starts, like, that's where the issue is, I think, in the disconnect for a lot of readers. I will say I was thoroughly entertained by this book. I enjoyed the plot line. I enjoyed the tension. I think her writing, for this being her first big, like, debut novel, I think that there's a lot of potential. I'm going to read the second one that comes out this year. I just hope that it takes a completely different turn. Like, let's ACOTAR this. Like, yes, I read ACOTAR. I gave that 3 to 5 stars because it felt like Beauty and the Beast. And I knew it was going to happen. But Sarah took that series and totally turned it on its head, and it turned into, of course, like, every romantasy reader's basically favorite series. Like, it that shit up. So I'm really hoping this for Lauren Roberts. And the main character's name is Peyton, which is so close to Peyton, which is my name. And so I would like the ending of this book. Like, that last scene, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I have high hopes for book 2 taking its own turn and having her develop it into original content.
Yes. And because this is a number 1, we're able to talk about it more. We're getting into, like, series here, so we're not going to be able to explicitly talk more about these next ones. But yes, please tell us the next one.
So, number 4 on the young adult fantasy list is Chain of Thorns, which is the 3rd book in the Last Hour series. If you guys don't know, I am obsessed with the Shadowhunter universe, which is the universe that this book takes place in. Like Payne said, this is the 3rd book in the series. So I'm going to take you back to the 1st book if you have not heard of these series. Most of you have probably heard of the Clockwork Angel Princess books, the Infernal Devices. This book is the kids of those. The people who survived that first series, their children, this is their adventure. You don't have to read those books to do it, but I was gonna say, if you're gonna pick up a Shadowhunter book, it better be the fucking Infernal Devices if you haven't read them yet. Yes. They are a masterclass in fantasy and romance and the best love triangle I have ever seen in my life. But these books, that ones that is actually on this list, is super good. It's following these young adults. It's in a period time, so it's like the 1910s, I think, for this. And so you see a lot of those, like, arranged marriages, because there's, like, very Bridgerton vibes, where there's they get out of conflicts by dealing with the special rules of period peace times. But it's also in the Shadowhunter world, which, if you know nothing about that, it takes this idea of people who are called Shadowhunters, and they have angel blood in them, and they put magical tattoos called runes on their body to protect the world from demons. There's also fairies and, like, the fae and warlocks and vampires and werewolves, and And so this takes place in England, and it's super fun. I would highly recommend this book. I think I gave this one 4 stars. The other 2 in this series were 5 stars, though.
Yeah.
I'm not a war girly, and so when you
It's
get to
always
the
the third
end of a
book.
series,
It's always the third one.
when I never love the end of a fantasy series because I don't like battles. I
Okay.
don't like reading about wars. But like it's a give and take. And the first half of this book was chef's kiss. Was so amazing. If you read the City of Bone books, the Mortal Instruments, and gave up on Cassandra Clare, I beg you, go back. Try again. Those were her first books. Just like
Yeah.
Powerless is Lauren Roberts' first books. Those were Cassandra Clare's first books. And her current day stuff is beautiful.
Yes. Take it from someone who started City of Bones and that when I was young and did not finish them. And then I ended up doing it and and then I went to do the prequels, the Infernal Devices, and I absolutely loved them. So it's worth it. Tess is the best.
The next one is Cassie Clare's BFF, Holly Black.
Yes, Holly Black. So this is like top of my TBR right now. I have not read this. Aubrey has.
So good.
And the second one just came out.
Yes,
So
and it's amazing.
So maybe we will be talking about the second one this time next year. So it's The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. It's going off of Oak from the Cruel Prince trilogy. And it's kind of his story. So have not read this yet. I'm really excited for it. We're still in the Cruel Prince world, which is so exciting, and I love that world, and I'm excited to go back to it. Aubrey, what did you rate this book when you read it?
5 stars. I read it in like 2 days, guys. It's amazing. It's so fast paced. He goes on his little adventure. I am obsessed with Holly Black's writing. Her prose is next level. The whimsy fantasy, I think you get so much more fantasy, and like he leaves the main isles that Cruel Prince takes place on. Cruel Prince takes place in like the capital of Elfheim, the fantasy world, and this one he's kind of moving about, and so you get to see so much more of the world, and it's super exciting. The other main character, Ren, is brilliant and cruel and wicked, like all of the Fae characters, and complex. Beautiful.
Yes, I love maps in fantasy books. That's my favorite thing to look at, and a lot of times we never get to see all that map, so it's fun when these offshoots happen and we're able to like fully dive into that map and be like, oh, that makes sense. And so it's exciting. So I'm really, really pumped to read that book. Alrighty, we are at number 2.
Yes, A Curse for True Love. This is the 3rd book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. I don't think either one of us have read this.
So I was just at Barnes & Noble and bought the first book.
Okay.
Series. So I will be embarking on it shortly, but crazy enough, LitJoy, I think, did their March Madness bracket for best book, and this beat Fourth Wing.
I know there's a lot of love for it. I'll read the description here because we can't give you guys our version. I'm going back and I'm reading the description for the first book because I'm sure the description for the 3rd book has tons of spoilers in it that we don't want.
Good.
But so for Once Upon a Broken Heart, it says, how far would you go for happily ever after? For as long as she can remember, Evangeline Fox has believed in true love and happy endings, until she learns that the love of her life will marry another. Desperate to stop the wedding and to heal her wounded heart, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic but wicked Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and that the Prince of Hearts wants far more from her than she pledged. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy.
It's giving Acomath. It's giving Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but better.
Yes. Yes.
And so I read that. I keep on when it beat Fourth Wing. I was like, wait, now you have my attention. And so when I was in Barnes and Noble and I was getting Fate of Inked Blood or whatever, that crazy blue book everyone's obsessing over that we are hopefully going to be doing a review about soon, I was like, you know what? F it. I'm getting this book. I read the back and I was like, wait, that tension and like he's going to pop up. So yeah.
Wait. That actually, it sounds a lot like Kingdom of the Wicked, which I just read 4 months ago, maybe. So that sounds very good. I thought it was a vampire book. That is not the case. But yeah, I definitely would look into it.
Yes. I'm excited to read that series.
Yes. All right, Peyton, take us away.
All right, number 1 for the YA fantasy is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I almost said Yaros. Yes. Oh my gosh. Rebecca Ross. Rebecca Ross's aesthetic and the way like she shows herself is like me. But for some reason, I cannot connect with this woman's writing. I think this deserves the number 1 spot for YA mad fantasy.
Yeah.
This is a rivals, not enemies, rivals to lovers plot line. And it is very whimsical and kind of like a head over heels romance story. That kind of happens very fast. And by the end of book 1, you kind of, you're in that plot line. We read Divine Rivals last year. I gave this 3 stars.
Yeah. I think I did 4.
Ruthless Vows, which is the second book, I gave 4 stars. So I actually liked the second one better. But Divine Rivals is number 1. I even though I have a little bit of a disconnect with this book, I know it touched a lot of people's hearts, and I do feel like it does deserve number 1 for YA. I would love for my child one day to read this book. I actually think if I was younger, I would have connected to it more. But now I have a little bit more needs in books and literature, and it just didn't do it for me. But to me, this is a historical romance timepiece set in a fantasy world, but there's not a lot of fantasy elements to this.
No.
So just know that going into it, I'm sure it's number 1. You've all read it by now. It really took Book Talk. Like, it had it in its fist. It grabbed it. It was close to it for many, many months. Hence why we read it. I had a fun time reading it. I was like, just didn't do it for me. So yeah, it's a good 3 stars.
I don't think it should be number 1 for YA fantasy. YA in general, perhaps, but I think it belongs like number 4 for fantasy because it's more like magical realism. So it follows Iris, who is a journalist reporting on this like fantasy war, and then she like goes to the war front to report, and she has this magic typewriter that she's sending letters to someone, and she's kind of forming this romantic connection to with these love letters. And then she has a rival in the journalism front, and so it's a very cute prosy story. It's high on its aesthetics, but I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't have put it at number 1, but people do love it, and I think it's good for people who don't like fantasy. Like, I feel like that might be why it rose so high, because if I know I have a friend, Cassie Graham, you can check her out. She has her own YouTube little booktube thing going on as well, who I actually went to high school and college with. She is a romance reader at like all romance all the time stuff that she posts, and she just read Divine Rivals and she loved it. And so I feel like that kind of crossover, a lot of romance readers will probably voted for Divine Rivals, putting it so high where they hadn't read some of these other ones because they're firmly in the fantasy, where this feels more historical.
Yeah, and it's more attainable. Like, the people, when you get into like Cruel Prince, people have like hoofs and and sometimes that's like hard for people to retain. And so while I like to be wrapped in the like fantasy blanket 100%, I think that honestly my palette for fantasy has really evolved, but when I was younger, historical romance was like my cup of tea, literally, and they drink tea a lot in these books.
Yes. It
I
had me wishing I drank tea.
Yeah, I seriously think that this book would have been my favorite as like a 14-year-old. So, with that being said, we are going to switch gears over to all just plain fantasy.
Yes.
I see something terrible on here that's probably making Aubrey want to gag. So,
I know. But that's
one,
number 1. Let's go to 5.
yes,
You can do all the talking for that one.
okay.
Okay, so number 5 on this list is Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is Legends and Lattes books. It says 0. I think it's like a prequel.
Okay.
In September, August maybe, we did a 24-hour reading reading vlog on our channel, and I read Legends and Lattes. Legends and Lattes is supposed to be this like, it's a cute little cozy fantasy. It feels very heavily inspired by D&D. Not that you need to know Dungeons and Dragons at all to understand this book. It's separate, but the world has like almost one-to-one world building details as Dungeons and Dragons. And it's just this girl who was an adventurer, and she gives up that life. She says that was too dangerous for me. She was like a criminal mercenary person, I don't know. And she starts a coffee shop instead. And it's got the cutest little found family. It's has like a lesbian love story, which is really cute. It's definitely cozy. I know why it went number 1. I was not the biggest fan of it. I think I was just trying to read a book quickly for the 24-hour reading challenge, and it just wasn't a good pick. I was like, oh, it's short and small, it'll be good, but it's not action-packed. It's cozy fantasy. If that is your cup of tea, I think you would enjoy it. It's very cute. I think if I audiobooked it, I would have loved it. I think it would have been
like a book you can just live in versus like,
yes,
like looking for that next plot line.
Yeah.
It's like a lifestyle game, like the cozy fantasy video games.
Yes.
Like, it's like where like Animal Crossings, where there's no real plot, you just kind of live in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like this book. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally understand that.
Yeah, and so this was just a prequel or something like that. So I'm sure it has very similar vibes. So I don't know. Number 5 is very high compared to some of this stuff that I'm seeing underneath it. But good for her.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, cool. I think it's a him. I think a guy writes these, but that's says Travis.
You know by the front cover, like you'll know Legends and Lattes because it's like very, like you'll know. So number 4 on this list is actually interesting because this was a possible book club read for us for book club, and
so bad.
Aubrey was rooting for it, but we're not. We're reading Tom Lake, or I don't know what it is. But anyway, so number 4 is the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And Emily Wilde number 1. So I guess it's going to be a series. But I think the second book just came out. Yeah, it looks like it did. It came out in last January. So, okay. So it's been out for like about a year now. So the premise of this book, which I've never read before, so I'm very excited to Rob react, because maybe I'll add this. Guys, the cover is so pretty. If you're watching the podcast, I'm gonna make sure to put up the covers in between Aubrey and I on the screen here so you can see them. Guys, look at this cover. Like, this looks like a perfect coffee table book. But anyways, it's about a professor that journeys to a small town in the far north to study fairy folklore and discovers dark fae magic, friendship, and love in the start of a heartwarming and enchanting new fantasy series. Cambridge professor Emily Wilde is good at many things. She's the foremost expert on the study of fairies. Ooh, cool. She's a genius scholar and a meticulous researcher who is writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. Need that, Emily. Thank you. But Emily Wilde is not good at people. She could never make small talk at a party or even get invited to one. She prefers the company of her books, her dog, and the fair folk. Okay, relatable. So when she arrives in the hardscrabble village of, you try to pronounce that, it's Raffensvik, Emily has no intention of befriending the gruff townsfolk. Nor does she care to spend time with another new rival, her dashing and insufferably handsome academic rival, Wendell Bamblebee. Wendell Bamblebee, love that.
That's a
Who-
name.
Who manages to charm the townsfolk, get in the middle of Emily's research, and utterly confound and frustrate her. But as Emily gets closer and closer to uncovering the secrets of the hidden ones, the most elusive of all fairies, lurking in the shadowy forest outside the town, she also finds herself on the trail of another mystery. Who is Wendell Bamblebee? And why and what does he really want? To find the answer, she'll have to unlock the greatest mystery of all, her own heart. So, self-discovery, perhaps a rivals to lovers plotline. Wow, this book seems really exciting. I'm definitely going to click the want to read button. Guys, that sounds like a really good time.
I know. Isn't that so? I'm obsessed with the cover. Yeah, so book 2 just came out in January, and book 3 comes out in next February in 2025.
Okay.
So a little trilogy action.
All right, cool. Well, I added it. Let me know what everyone, like, what do you guys think? Are you interested in reading this book? I am. I'm like, that sounds like fun. It's like something I can insert myself into.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, next we have A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. If you guys do not know, Priory of an Orange Tree, which took off on here like a year and a half ago now.
Yeah.
That was the original standalone fantasy, and then this is a prequel of that series. So we have 2 prequels on this top 5 list. Guys, listen. I know people love Priory. I gave it 3 tries, and I DNF'd it each time. I do not like this book.
And you do not DNF. Aubrey, like,
and I never DNF books, guys. The proper nouns in this book are outlandish. I'm not a huge fan of the writing style. It is 90% world building. I mean, I only got 50% into the book, so, you know, who knows? Maybe don't trust my opinion on this one. I know people love this book. People are obsessed with this book. To me, it was slow. The world building was way too thick, and there was not enough character. There were too many characters, but so I couldn't connect with any of the characters.
Yeah.
I know what that's like. This is now in that world set ahead of time. I think there is another lesbian romance in it, and some like dragon riders and fighters. It's such a developed, cool world. And if you liked Priory, I'm sure you would love this book, but it's not for me.
Yeah. It's basically, it seems like an epic journey, sort of like whirlwinds, like quest sort of story.
I don't know. And guys, I love Brandon Sanderson, which is the next guy on here. And I've read the Stormlight Archive, which is the biggest epic world building beast of a series to read. And I loved it and enjoyed it. And so I think it's all about like what clicks for you. And I just wasn't connecting to the characters. But
yes, I totally get that. So with that being said, what was this? Number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Is Tress of the Emerald Sea, which, because I have it right here, I'll pull it out for everyone. This book is perfect for spring. So if you are looking for a spring read, this is definitely it. I rated this 3 stars, and we want to do a book review on this so we can kind of dive into it more. This was my first, and I feel like I feel like a broken record, but Aubrey and I have both read this last year, and all I have to say is, if you've never read Brandon Sanderson before, I need you to go in to this book with the mindset of this isn't Brandon Sanderson's writing. This is like a very campy, fun story that was like an offshoot. It's explained a lot that it was something he wrote for his wife. And so I think the best thing is like go into this with like, oh, I'm going to read this kind of like a story you were told as a child sort of mentality. But like I also am gonna like truthfully review it, just so if anyone's ever read or seen, oh my gosh, Princess Bride,
yes,
that's what it is. So,
Yes.
the name Tress is beautiful. Aubrey has the special edition. The
I
illustrations
know.
inside this book
We go
are
grab it.
absolutely amazing. While Aubrey grabs that, I'll read what it's about. So, the only life Tress has known on her island home in an emerald green ocean has been a simple one, with the simple pleasures of collecting cups brought by sailors from faraway lands and listening to stories told by her friend Charlie. But when his father takes him on a voyage to find a bride and disaster strikes, Tress must stow away on a ship and seek the sorceress of the deadly midnight sea. Amid the spore oceans where pirates abound, can Tress leave her simple life behind and make her own place sailing a sea where a single drop of water can mean instant death? So when I tell you, like, I will tell my kids this as a bedtime story, like,
yeah.
this is whimsical and fun, and that, like, if you know Brandon Sanderson, Hoyd's the narrator, and it's like funny and a good time. And look at Aubrey's beautiful illustrated version. My one of my really good friends, Logan, he's the one that bought me this book and sent it to me because he's like, Peyton, you have to read this book. You're gonna love Tress. You're gonna connect with her. Tress is a character. She is just magical. Magical romance, whimsical is the best way to describe this book. I enjoyed reading it, but if you're in it for, like, I don't know, it's entertaining, but it's not. I was not gonna let it just like clog my feed. I mean, on Goodreads, it's rated 4.44, which is really good. So, I really enjoyed it, and the plot twist actually got me. So.
Yes, it is. It's so camp. It is the princess. So basically, Brandon Sanderson was watching The Princess Bride with his wife, and at the end of the movie, he was like, "Wasn't that such a good movie?" And Emily, his wife, was like, "Yeah, but I wish Buttercup had like done more. Like, she didn't really have a lot of agency." So that inspired him to write this, and it's part of his coveted secret projects. If you know, Brandon Sanderson during COVID wrote 4 books on top of his normal insane publishing schedule in secret from his publishers, from his team, and launched them with a Kickstarter that brokered, like, changed the publishing industry and is amazing. He is a force of nature in the fantasy world.
He deserves
I would totally recommend all of his books. They can be crazy to get into, but Tress is a standalone. It's very whimsy. It, like Peyton was saying, it's told through an in-world character's narration. And so the narration style is so hilarious. It is so camp, and it is nothing like anything else that he has written that are more traditional fantasy books.
I think that's so important to know going into it.
Yes.
Like, do not let this, because Tress got so popular, and also because it's so like pretty looking, and a lot of Brandon Sanderson's book covers are like not appeasing to look at, because it's just like classic fantasy. Like, if you're a dude, like jive with it.
He loves them, but like the man fantasy covers,
it's like, I do not want that displayed on my shelf. But Tress, I'm like, look at this pretty fantasy book I have. So yeah, I recommend it if you're looking for just like it's a quick read, just like get wrapped into the world of like when you were little and your parents or grandparents would tell you crazy stories about far-off lands, and it feels very Disney. Like Disney could take this and make it into a movie, and it would do very well.
It would be so good.
It would be so good. So yeah, I gave it like a 3.5, but I'm very happy talking about it. Number 1, I am not okay with this. It's Lee Bardugo's number 2 in her series, Alex Stern series. It's Hellbent. Aubrey can't stand the look of rodents.
I won't read these books because of the rodent. That's disgusting. Do not put that on a cover. That is nasty.
So, there's like, I'm gonna be honest. Ninth House is, I think, the first one in this. My cousin read it, and I trust my cousin so much with his. We're actually reading the Throne of Glass series together right now, and I feel like so seen that someone's reading it with me. And so he told me that he read Ninth House, I believe, and he was like, it wasn't that great. And so if he didn't like it, I knew that I probably wasn't going to like it, so I didn't even give these books a chance. I liked the Ninth House snake kind of design, and I was like, oh, that's really cool on my shelf. And then I saw Hellbent come out, and like honestly, I don't really want to like spend too much time with this book because I'm just like not interested in it. I don't know why it's number one. Maybe someone can clarify why it deserves the number one spot. I personally just like don't really see it. I don't
Yeah.
understand why it's the number one in fantasy. I just feel like we had a lot of good fantasy books last year, even like Tress, and I just it's not connecting for me. But regardless, I'm not Xing out Lee Bardugo. She right? It's a woman.
Yes.
I think. Okay. She's
Yes.
coming out with
Lee
a new
Bardugo
book.
wrote the Shadow and Bone
Yep.
series. She wrote the Six of Crows and Crooked
Yeah.
Kingdom series, which are amazing and people love. This
I'm
is
not Xing
because
her out.
Peyton doesn't know anything about this.
No.
I am disgusted by the covers, but it is a dark academia, society, magic, adult fantasy.
Like I'm good.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, but I can't get past the rodent. I do really like Lee Bardugo's books. She
Okay.
does a lot of character-based writing and not a lot of plot-heavy writing.
It's giving
and
Atlas
she-
6 and I'm not interested.
and she has a new book coming out called The Familiar, which I am very excited about, and it's about like the Spanish. I can't think of the word right now. The
Cartel?
Spain thing. No, when a lot of people died. Like the 16th century Spanish period.
Okay.
Anyways, it looks super cool. It's called The Familiar. Let's go to romantasy because
Yes, let's get off this before Aubrey pukes.
Yes, I'm already here because I didn't want to. I wouldn't let it on my screen. I hate rodents, guys. And I know that's such a stupid reason to not read the books, but maybe I could read it on the Kindle.
That's why I took
Because
it
then
by
you're not
like
seeing the cover.
I like took that away from you. I was like, we are not really gonna talk about this book because it's gross looking.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a cool cover if you're into that, but I'm not.
Mhm.
I didn't read this
Okay.
this book on. So we're on romantasy now. Best romantasy of 2023. I
Yes.
think you read these.
So I have read like half of the first book. So number 5 is Sorrow and Starlight, Zodiac Academy number 8. 8, y'all. The Zodiac Academy series, my sister is obsessed with it. I couldn't get into it.
Okay.
Basically, what the Zodiac Academy, because this is book 8, I have no idea what the plot is now, but the Zodiac Academy, you see 2 girls who are like part of the normal world, and they're twins, and they are brought into this like fantasy elite system because they were actually like orphans and their parents were like the king and queens or some shit like that. And they're brought into this like, I don't know if they're vampires or fae or werewolves. Oh, it's called Vampire Academy. No, it's called Zodiac Academy. It reminds me a lot of Vampire Academy. That's why I'm saying that.
That's what, I get them confused too.
Magical. They are brought into this magical thing, and each you can have powers that are like water based or fire based, like that kind of vibe again. And of course, our main characters, I'm pretty sure they end up being divergent. There's the magic ceremony where you like see what magic you have, and they have all of it. Because obviously, and then there's like 3 hot like top council princes or something that are like really dangerous, and there's a professor. I'm pretty sure there's a professor romance. Sorry, this is the worst description ever. These books are indie published.
Okay.
Or at least originally were. They feel indie published. The writing is reminiscent of Wattpad. They are supposed to get super spicy. There's a bully romance that happens in these books. I feel like if you haven't read something like that before, it would be great. I just kind of have done that in middle school.
Yeah.
But this is like a middle school version. Like I feel like I read a lot of series that are like that in middle school, and so it just wasn't for me. But it's supposed to be really good. The characters, I will say, I think it's another situation where it was a romance author writing in the fantasy genre.
Yes.
And so the styles and stuff feel like that.
It's romantasy.
People
I guess,
love it. It wasn't for me. This series is ongoing and super long, and the books are super huge. Try it out if you'd like.
Try it out. Yeah, I get the Zodiac Academy and Vampire Academy mixed up so much.
Yeah.
Um,
And they felt similar.
Speaking of lots of books and series, and
Yes.
number 4 is A Soul of Ash and Blood. And
Yeah.
all right, I had to look what part of the series it was part of because we have read so much JLA in the past year.
Yes.
I want to like claw my eyeballs out. So this is number 5 in the Blood and Ash series. This is the book from Castiel's point of view. If you don't know who Castiel is in the series, you eventually will.
Yeah.
So it is a retelling of, it's like a Midnight Sun situation. Edward retells how he, think of it that way. This book was such a damn waste of time for me. And we did an extensive review about this. So if you're interested, go watch the review. Yeah, A Soul of Ash and Blood. Like, seriously, this this book, if you are knee deep in this series like we are and cannot stop at this point, just read the first and last chapter and you'll be good. So this is a like 2.5, 3 for me. The ending is pretty crazy. But with that being said, like, you don't really need to read it. Like, don't spend the money. If you don't have the books, like, just look it up online.
Yeah. All right, guys. Moving forward, we have The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is book 2 of Cassara Broadbent's Crowns of Nyaxia series. I'm sure I butchered every single one of those pronunciations. The first book of the series is The Serpent and the Wings of Night.
Yes.
You've probably seen the cover. She is also the author of The Daughter of No Worlds, which has like that red cover with like the blonde-haired girl and the sword. So I've heard a lot of good things. I think that this was another series that was originally indie published and then picked up by a publisher. I have gone to bought this by the first one multiple times, but it's a weird height. It's not like the standard 6x9 for the hardback, and honestly, that's the only thing that stopped me.
I saw that on TikTok. Or like it was a like a meme on Instagram where it's like when books aren't the right height, and it's like someone like like those Renaissance paintings where they're like in agony because it's like like seriously, like if you're gonna indie publish, just make sure it's like don't ruin my day.
But no, I think the new one is traditionally published and still fucked up in size. I don't know.
No.
But this is one that I want to read. I will read the description here in a second.
Okay.
We just haven't hopped on the train yet. I honestly I feel like as big as romantasy is this year, we're at what, 3? This is the top 3rd book in romantasy, and we haven't read a lot of these, and we read a lot. So I don't know. I feel like we'll see. Okay.
Yeah.
Human or vampire, the rules of survival are the same. Never trust, never yield, and always, always guard your heart. The adopted human daughter of the Nightborn vampire king, Oriya, carved her place in the world designed to kill her. Her only chance to become something more than prey is entering the Kahari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself. But winning won't be easy amongst the most vicious warriors of all 3 vampire houses. To survive, Oriya is forced to make an alliance with a mysterious rival. This plot is feeling very similar to some of the other ones that we've read today. Like, honestly, vampires are in again.
I know.
And I don't know how I feel.
Twilight. Yeah.
This is giving a little bit of Powerless as well.
Yeah.
Everything about Raheen is dangerous. He is ruthless. He is a ruthless vampire, an efficient killer, and an enemy to her father's crown, and her greatest competition. Yet, what terrifies Oriya the most of all is that she finds herself oddly drawn to him. But there's no room for compassion in the Kahari. War for the House of Night brews, shattering everything that Oriya thought she knew about her home. and Rain may understand her more than anyone. But their
Of course.
blossoming attraction could be her downfall in a
Of
kingdom
course.
where nothing is more deadly than love. The Serpent and
Always.
Wings of Night is the first book in a new series of heart-wrenching romance, dark magic, and bloodthirsty intrigue. Perfect for fans of From Blood and Ash and A Court of Thorns and Roses. Interesting.
So it's like, if you like this book, read this book.
If you like this,
our
cute.
our one professor in college like raved about these books, so I feel like we have to read them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will, just like the Stephanie Garber book that I just picked up. And also, I'm looking at it now, it's huge. We'll get to it. And maybe we'll wrap around to this. Yeah, we'll see. I hear about those books a lot, so
yeah,
it may be a quick read.
Interesting.
All right. So Red Tower kind of swooped the top 2 books of this.
I didn't know that this next one was Red Tower. Interesting.
Yeah. Yes. So this book, like in the industry where people feel like things are like placed.
Yeah.
Like things are like shooted like a plant. Yeah. Like who did Bobby, whatever her name is, who had that like Drake thing?
I don't know.
Bobby Seehoff, or remember she like Drake and her apparently had like I don't know, she has that podcast and she acts like really weird.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So my fiance
Robert think she's a plant.
Robert is convinced she's a plant because she just like got popular really fast. Anyway, so like,
but she did TikToks. She is another. So just like the author of this book, she did TikToks in that like sarcastic, dry style for years before her like interviewing podcast launched.
I know, but he's convinced, and to me, this gives the same vibes. I don't know, it gives plant energy.
I think that the platforms they built on TikTok let them do these other things. It's kind of like when Dixie D'Amelio started making music, where it's like, okay, you got popular for one thing and you're kind of entering another thing.
Fair. That's fair. But now it's at number 2. So this is Assistant to the Villain.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. So this is by Hannah Nicole Mayer. You've probably seen her on TikTok. She does those cute little skits where she pretends to be an assistant of like the villain guy, and then she wrote a book about it.
Yes. So yeah, basically this book is about being assistant to the villain, and it's spoofy and funny and a good time. It's going to be a TV series, so that's interesting.
It gives sitcom energy.
If you'll remember, like I said, I'm gonna put the book covers on the screen, but you'll know because for a while it had like the red dyed pages. Everyone was reading this book for a book club, and apparently it was a good time. I don't know, I haven't read it.
I've heard bad things.
It has a 3.9 on Goodreads, and I do see quite a few bad reviews. It looks like it's going to be a series, 3 books.
I think it's a hit or miss.
Yeah, but I just need to talk about the difference between our number 1 spot and number 2 spot as far as votes are concerned. Assistant to the Villain has 33,000, almost 34,000 votes. Our number 1 spot has 397,000 votes.
That's the issue.
That's an issue.
This list is so skewed because they should have let you vote for 2. Because almost everyone just voted for Fourth Wing, and so it's only the people who hate Fourth Wing that decided what the rest of this list is gonna be.
Yes, so that's why I feel like we should bypass kind of like this whole list and just focus on the fact that Fourth Wing is number 1 on this list. So if you've read Assistant to the Villain, let us know what you thought.
Yeah.
I'm not against reading it. It's not a long book. I would love to talk about it, but to be completely honest, like I just think when you put Fourth Wing and Assistant to the Villain next to each other, it just looks silly.
Yeah.
Especially for romantasy. So, I don't know. So, anyways, Fourth Wing is number 1, of course. Like, are we surprised?
Yeah. Guys, we are obsessed with this book series. We have made so much content about it. We picked it up right as it was getting popular on TikTok last, like, May, April.
Yeah.
And it's changed Peyton's life forever.
I'm having a hard time with Fourth Wing these days because it's gotten so popular. It has like ACOTAR syndrome now where people aren't reading it because it is hyped. And I don't think it's overhyped by any means. Like, I really don't. But my issue is that with anything that gets really popular, people have like wild opinions about it. And so
Yeah.
it's really hard to love a book series when there's just so much publicity around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
I'm
getting
having
to
a
the
hard time.
fact where it's becoming like this like market industry thing, and then obviously with people who love it, there's going to be so many who hate it.
Yeah.
If you don't know what Fourth Wing is about, what rock are you living
Yeah.
under?
What rock are you under?
What the heck? It is about our main character, Violet Soaringale. It's a high fantasy world, and her mom is the general um, for this nation, and she is going off to war college. And she trained her whole life to be a scribe. It very much gives Divergent vibes in some of its world building elements. It's very reminiscent of that. But to an adult, like sexy level. But instead, her mom says, hey, you're going to go join the Riders Squadron and you're going to train to be a dragon rider, which is like the most dangerous thing ever.
Yeah.
And
And she's
Violet is
frail.
so cunning and intelligent, and she uses that to, survive throughout the book and insane
Very divergent.
challenges. Romance is amazing. Characters
Oh,
are
yeah.
amazing. The pacing
Yes.
of this book is the greatest thing about it, hands down. I
the
forced my
pacing.
husband to read it. Peyton has some guy friends who read it and loved it.
Yes.
Even though it's romantasy, I mean, Violet is thinking about dick. Violet
Yeah.
is thinking about dick. But I think even that being romance is a genre heavily marketed towards women, I think that men enjoy this because of everything else going on. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great, guys.
Red
We love
Tower, the publisher of this book, they teamed up with a voice actor to voice the Tarn, like best
Yeah.
Tarn quote. I love dragons. I will say I'm really happy I read Throne of Glass after Fourth Wing, because now I'm in
Very.
Air of Fire and they keep on mentioning things and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's feeling like, some
There's
sort of.
world building that's definitely similar. Now, Throne of Glass did come out first.
It did. So, but I just think it would have had a different impact on me. And so,
Mhm.
I don't know. I also talked to a couple people that, like, kind of like Powerless, Rebecca
Yeah.
Yarros said copy paste. But I don't know. Like, I have to, like, have some blinders right now in the community, because how I felt reading Fourth Wing is something I haven't felt in a very long time. And so
Yeah.
I have to stay true to that feeling
Yeah.
and remember what I felt like. And so I think as readers, I think we should do that. Like, hey, the way you felt was real and genuine, and just because someone said something and you're like, yeah, that makes sense, that doesn't mean you have to like change your opinion of like how
Yeah.
that book made you feel. And this book made me feel so incredible. I don't cry when reading. I was bawling reading this book. And I don't cry when I read books. I'm like, oh, that's sad, or like I'll be like, no, or like I feel like I'm gonna cry, but actually shedding it like a tear. Oh my gosh, it's crazy what words on paper can do. And Rebecca Yarros' pacing and the way she can write characters, like she's a romance writer first and foremost, and that comes out in this book.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know, I do think it deserves number one. It just does.
Absolutely. And the votes speak for
Show
themselves.
it.
Those numbers are insane.
So
we could talk
skewed.
about Fourth Wing
Yes.
all day. We have so much content out talking about it. We even compared Fourth Wing to Taylor Swift's Fearless album.
Speak Now.
Speak Now. Oh my god, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Speak Now. So we have tons of content out there to talk about, but
Give that a
this is
view.
probably the end of this video.
Yes.
I think that, the Goodreads, it's not the list I would have made.
No, it's of course not. But listen, we don't know everything, and y'all
Yeah.
voted for it. So
Yeah.
it's a popular vote sort of thing. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I want to know what list you identify with the most. The YA,
Yes.
the fantasy, or the romantasy. Which one? I actually think the YA we kind of relate to the most out of all of these, because
I was so shocked. I was
Yeah.
ready to go full into romantasy, and I was like, no, the YA was where I was at.
Yeah, so with that being said, like, let us know what books were on your top 5 love to know that.
Yes.
And yeah, if you have any other requests, let us know down below. Of course, like, subscribe, comment, follow us, Hardcover Podcast everywhere. You will find us and our smiling faces there.
Yes. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy reading.